Hey, good morning, everyone. Instead of my normal short posts, I wanted to try something different and just kind of freestyle and give you a little bit of my thoughts about the transition. And maybe this will help break some of the barriers that people are understanding when going from the military to the public sector or the private sector, right? When you're leaving the military and looking for a job. So, first, thank you, everyone, on Wednesday for welcoming me to the FCC and not the government agency, the Fogly Challenge Club. But I will tell anyone out there that it has been liberating to stop worrying about my hair and if people saw it or anything else like that. It's just me now. I just have to update that profile picture. So let's talk about the transition and what makes it so hard. And I'm going to talk about this from a military perspective. One of the things I think we undervalue when we're serving in the military, whether it's for 4 years or 34 years, is the guarantee, the comfort, right? You know that you have a job. For as long as you really want it, you have housing, you have meals, you have health insurance, you have a paycheck coming. And even when people throw out that sequester stuff and everything else like that, you know you're going to get back paid, right? And the military is going to do everything they can to take care of you. And so for me and so many other people, I think the most, or let's say the scariest part of the transition is the fact that there's a date circled on a calendar somewhere where you no longer have a job. And if you didn't plan far enough ahead to be financially stable, and this is not about financial planning in any way, shape, or form, there's a lot of stress involved with how are you going to take care of your family because you no longer have those guarantees. And for retirees, most often your retirement check makes you ineligible for unemployment. And so you've got to figure out how to make it work. And so that adds a lot of stress. That year of transition, you're trying to figure out what you want to do. You're trying to figure out where you want to go. You're trying to build a resume. You're doing your VA appointments. You're going to job fairs. You're doing your job in the military. And then you have this background stress in there that's really grinding on you that, oh my gosh, I need to have a job on this date. And you want it to be the best job. You want it to be something somewhat lateral in most cases, if not better. You want to have a different lifestyle, but you got to go out there and find it. And I think that extra stress is what makes it so difficult to transition. And what I want to do is back this up to everybody, and I want you to think about this. Everyone starts their transition with a resume, right? You go through your transition courses. The first thing almost everyone does when they start the transition process, whether they decide that they want to transition, is I need to write a resume, because a resume is required to apply for a job, right? No job application out there does not have a spot where it says upload your resume, unless you're going through Easy Apply on LinkedIn, which is still just like a resume. It's just taking your profile and putting it in resume format. But I'm going to tell you that that's backwards, and that the hiring window, meaning flash to bang, the time when companies post jobs and you can effectively apply and be considered for those roles, is no further out than 2 to 3 months from the day you can start working. Yeah, I know there's some fully commissioned jobs. They'll be happy to sign you on 6 months plus prior. And if you have a really strong relationship with someone, they may be willing to take that leap. But for the most part, companies post vacancies when they need someone, right? They've got to fill a vacancy. They're investing to bring somebody on that's going to help them drive more revenue, solve more problems, bring more capability, right? And so if you're starting outside of that 2 to 3 month mark, you don't need to start on the resume. What you need to start on is figuring out what you want to do, right? And it's not as easy as most people think, right? A lot of people just throw out things like, I'm going to go into HR. I'm going to go into project management, right? I'm going to go into logistics. My favorite is all my E9 peers want to go into talent management. And I've got to talk them through that process. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. In large companies, how many people are doing what you think talent management is? and how many people you're competing for those roles have experience in those industries. And so what I have to talk to you a lot about is figuring out what you want to do is not as easy as just throwing a title out there. It's not saying I want to do HR because I did HR in the military or I was an E8 and above in the military. So there's an HR component to it, right? Because when you start talking about doing HR, you have to really start talking about all the HR competencies out there. You have to start thinking about employment law, right? Labor laws, dealing with, potential vendors. You've got to talk about talent. You've got to talk about benefits and compensation, right? There's a lot of different things. You've got to talk about different ways to handle conflicts within your organization. I mean, you can't always just go down and counsel someone or tell them march and pound sand or whatever. And I'm not saying that's what we all do, but there's a translation involved and there's more about it, right? We have foundational things that definitely apply to HR. It can help you become a successful HR professional, but there's gaps that you have to fill and that you have to be able to identify so you can explain and relate, right? So my good buddy Wardell Jefferson was the G1 Sergeant Major for the Army, right? He did an internship with McCormick and Company, the spice one, the little spice, red spice company, fantastic company. And that internship gave him the knowledge for the industry and the manufacturing industry to translate the things that he did in the military to how they would relate to that industry. And then those 4 months of experience helped him fill those gaps because he could explain the things he'd learned about employment law and the things that he didn't typically deal with in the military, right? So that's how you fill those gaps. Now, for people just getting started, and not everyone's going to get to do a skill bridge, I'm going to tell you that the first part of your transition needs to be about discovery. And I don't want to go so mystical in this. It's discovery about yourself, about your family requirements. You really have to sit down and think about the things that are important to you, right? Is it location? Is it continuity? Is it salary? Is it lifestyle? What are the things that are important to you? And you really have to narrow that down a little bit because otherwise, when you start looking for jobs, you're like, you get on a job board and 2 hours later you come off, you started off looking at vice president roles in talent and you come out looking at operations roles and saying, I can do it the whole way. Like you just get lost. So you've got to look on narrowing it down. But when we also talk about discovery, the part that many people fail to do when they're transitioning, and this is what causes a lot of stress, is you fail to discover what's out there in the private sector. And I'm going to tell you, whatever job you choose, if you can't tell me what a day in the life of a professional in that job is, I mean, like to detail. Like if you can't tell me, if you say you want to be a project manager and you can't sit down with someone and tell them what's a day like, you're like, what do they do every day? What are they like? What are they not like? How many meetings do they have? What are their biggest challenges? How to deal with difficult clients. What software programs do they use? If you can't talk about that in-depth process for anything, same thing with HR, same thing with logistics. If you really can't talk about what a day in the life of those people are or is, then I'm going to tell you plain and simple, you don't know what you want to do yet. And you are not the best candidate for those roles. Again, whether you've done 4 or 24 roles on paper, because if you don't know what their challenges are, what their pain points are, what their days are like in those roles, then you cannot adequately capture that on your resume or on your profile, right? If you don't know what they're suffering, what their challenges are, then you can't make it easy and solve them on your resume. And so as you start thinking about it, say the big ones that everyone always says, project management, program management, operations, and training, right? If you can't really get in there, dive in and start knowing what project management is, if you can't dive in and learn how operations is not a 3-shop, right? It's totally different in the private sector. If you can't realize that training means a lot of different things in the private sector, if you can't dive in and know what those are, then you're not going to be able to choose the right path. You're not going to be able to articulate why you're the best candidate effectively. And you're probably going to be looking within a year of getting out. And that's not fun because you don't have the guarantees of that paycheck at that point. So how do we do that? And this is where we really get into LinkedIn. And let me see if I can bring this up. I didn't plan on doing it, but let me see if I can share a screen. I'm going to share screen 2. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to LinkedIn. Let me pull it over. Sorry, you guys see all my stuff here. I want to really go to LinkedIn. That wasn't what I wanted. Well, that's interesting. Well, so I'm not going to share a screen right now. For some reason, I had some glitches, probably because I'm going through it for StreamYard. But so what I'm going to tell you to do is the key point to a transition, and this is the fun of being live, is when you want to start figuring out what you want to do, as soon as you figure out that you're getting out or you start planning at least a year plus out, is you get on LinkedIn, you get your profile good enough. You don't have to worry about it being perfect for whatever you want to do. It just needs to show people enough about you that they can find something you have in common, or that you put enough effort into the profile that they're not going to waste their time talking to you. And then what you do is you get in there and you do searches on LinkedIn for people that share a background or interest. So for veterans, you can type up there in the search bar whatever job you want, whether it's sales, project manager, operations manager, director, whatever. You type those titles in there, those roles, and you click search and you click people. So you're getting a list of people on your LinkedIn page that are in those roles. And then you start adding filter criteria, whether it's location. So if you want to be in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, you add that as a location. It'll filter it down. If you're in the military, you go over to all filters and you add as past company your branch of service or the other branch of services, because a veteran's a veteran, right? But I like to tell people to start with their own branch of service. So if I add U.S. Army under past company and hit apply, it's going to give me Army veterans in the job I search in the Washington, D.C. area. And then you just start reaching out to people with a message. Hey, Mike, I noticed you're a retired Army Sergeant Major that found their success in consulting. I'm interested in going into the Big Four. I wonder if you have a few minutes for, to give me some advice, or maybe, hey, I'm an Army Sergeant Major getting out, and I think I want to go into consulting. I wonder if you have a few minutes for some advice. Best, Bob, Sarah, whatever. Or you could filter by college. Hey, I noticed you're, an Excelsior alumni that found success in the Big Four. I'm, an Army soldier that also attended Excelsior. And I'd love to get some advice from you if you get a chance, or to, join your professional network. And I think the key about this is you just have to send these out. You've got to break the ice. And if you send them out consistently, people are going to say yes. And it's hard at first because you feel like you're asking a stranger, right, for advice. And you got to make that. Don't send people messages that say, hey, I'm getting out from the Army. Here's my resume. What do you got for me? Because that's like come on, I'm not going to invest time. I'm not going to go through our website and look for jobs that match you. I don't know you from Adam. Let's triage our time. And I'm going to spend it on the people that are like, hey, we have these things in common. Do you have a few minutes to just give me some advice, right? You got to make it easy for people to say yes. So when you start your transition, you think you've got it narrowed down, or if you don't know, whatever, just narrow it down to a few and start reaching out to professionals in those fields and ask for those phone calls, ask to join their network, right? Ask for advice, not a job. You're not even hireable for most points, that far out. And you've got to do it consistently. Now, I will tell you, if you are outside of a year, my advice is 2 to 3 calls or video calls a week. Schedule them. That's 2 to 3 new people, which means you're probably sending out 5 to 10 requests a week to make sure you meet that. And they could be 15-minute calls. But every call, you're getting FaceTime with decision makers. You're getting FaceTime with people in their field. You're learning about the fields. So after every call, you sound better to hiring managers because you know the right words to use. You understand more about their day. You're able to relate it to your industry, right? And then, so if you're outside of a year, I tell you 2 to 3 calls a week, every week. If you're within inside a year, maybe you start bumping and get up to 3 to 5. If you're within 6 months, I mean, no playing around, 5 of them a week. You're talking about maybe an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours investment in time to get those calls, provided you've been growing them. But man, if you think about how many relationships you'll have built in that time, it's incredible. If you think about how much better you sound after all of those conversations, it's amazing and it makes a difference. I mean, when I hit the last few months of my transition, I had people come to me and say, I didn't know you were still in the Army. We thought you'd been out for a year plus. And to me, that's one of the best. It's one of the best things they could say about you in the transition. And so when you start having those conversations, you start learning about the fields, you will pivot along the way because you're going to get to a point where like, I don't want to do that job. I didn't realize that was involved that. Or someone's going to give you another job you should consider. And you're going to change directions in that. So there's this long period of discovery, which for me took over 8 months. But there's this long period of discovery that it's better that you do it while you have those guarantees, while you have the freedom, while you have the flexibility to pivot and not worry about a paycheck. Do it now. Figure out what you want to do. Remember to send a thank you message, note, whatever, after every call. Every time someone invests time in you, just say thanks. And over time, what you're going to do is you're going to have this stable of mentors in the fields where you want, that have access to jobs, that are going to be able to bring you into their network, right? And maybe make introductions for you. And when you hit that 3-month mark where you can start applying, most of you are already going to have people that are going to say, hey, give me a holler when you're at the 3-month point, and I'll make some introductions. Or send me your resume when you're 3-month point, and I'll bring it around my company. Or I'll make a referral. And the stress is still going to be there, but you're going to feel so much more confident. You're going to feel so much more comfortable. You're going to be so much better spoken. You're going to be so much better able to articulate what you bring to a company, why you are the best candidate. And you're going to have had so many conversations with people that a lot of them are going to feel like they can take a chance, a little bit of risk on these small gaps because they know you. And a lot of times when we have conversations with people, in a 15-minute conversation, we can see talent, right? Like, I don't care that there's these gaps, right? I don't care that you're a non-traditional candidate on paper. I want you on my team. And as a business owner that has hired people with non-traditional backgrounds, and if you look at, every one of my military spouses, I mean, let's talk about it. Olivia Perez Breland, non-traditional background. Everybody that knows her knows she's an absolute rock star. And if you've seen what she's done for our brand in the last 6 months, you will understand that it was an incredible hire to bring on our team. But to me, it was an easy decision because I saw her, I talked to her, I knew what she brought to the team. Lucy Robinson, same exact thing. She hadn't been recruiting for years, but everything she's done since then made her the best candidate to build our recruiting program and to help grow our direct placement practice. You talk about people like Kate Wood, we just brought on our team, veteran, West Point graduate, military spouse, now one of our recruiters that's helping to create opportunity to hire military. You talk at Matt Quick on the Digital Networking Professional Program, got out as a career counselor. But when you talk about people that are building training programs that are comfortable on LinkedIn, that know their stuff, you talk about bringing on a Matt, right? And Jason Willett, 2-star nominative sergeant major in logistics, is now running Hire Military. But when you talk about people that are passionate, invested, understand our community, and the time he spent working for the state of Washington gave him a different perspective as well, it all comes together. But none of us, including me, look like a perfect candidate on paper. All of those opportunities came because we had conversations and we instantly saw how passionate they were, what kind of culture add they would be to our team, and how we'd all be able to grow together to really accomplish the mission and really create more opportunities for service members, veterans, and military spouses. So the key for all of you, I'm going to tell you, is to consciously expand your network through those conversations. Continue to really gain that information that you need to brand yourself as what you decide you want to do, and to create opportunity by building this network of professionals that can open doors, that can answer questions, that can make referrals, that can make introductions, or can hire you yourself. And I'm going to tell all of you is that if you don't already have that network outside of the military bubble, and I'm talking about service members, recent veterans, military spouses, that the way you create that is on LinkedIn, right? And you just get your profile good enough, get over your fears, get over your fear of rejection, find people that have something in common with you, and just ask, right? Ask for a few minutes. Not everyone's going to say yes, but you don't need everyone to say yes. You just need sometimes one person to say yes. I will share with all of you, Dan Savage used to be the head of veterans programs at LinkedIn, now works with Shift, building wonderful programs for them. I sent Dan an article I wrote on LinkedIn and asked for his advice. And the next day I was on a phone call with him, and Dan Savage was the most impactful mentor during my transition, bar none. And it was because I probably stood out a little bit more because I sent this article that I took the time to write about what in the world is a sergeant major, which was a lot of fun to write. But just keep expanding your bubble, right? Keep building these relationships. Keep asking these questions. Identify what you really want to do, what you're really passionate about that exists in the private sector. At no point should you ever feel comfortable that you're set, that you're this in the military and you're going to do this. You should be comfortable being uncomfortable. And the more conversations you have, I'm going to tell you that the fear turns to excitement, right? And you start being exciting. Instead of being scared about the unknown, you start being excited about the opportunities, the ability to choose, the ability to grow, the ability to find new things. And once that mind shift changes and you know you have the network to support it and you have a good idea of what you want to do, then writing that resume isn't difficult. That finding that opportunity isn't challenging. There's still going to be stress involved, but it's going to be so much less because you know you're on the right path. You know you have a way to grow once you get out of the military. You know you have the opportunities, and it's fun. So let me move on here real quick, and let me see if I have any questions. I'm doing this myself, so I'll see if I have any questions. And I see Lucy's on. I see the fellow members of the Follically Challenged Club, like Sergeant Major David Osborne, saying welcome to the club, loving the haircut. Obviously, you can tell we have something in common besides being a sergeant major. I see Brian Arrington joining. I remember talking to Brian at events in Arrington in Atlanta, and I remember the day that the light bulb went on for Brian Arrington. He was at a Centurion Military Alliance event, and I think Jared Myers and the team, Shawntae Hall, and the rest of the team really opened his eyes to what LinkedIn could be and how you can grow these, your community. I've got Kathy saying there's a reason that practice makes perfect. Yep. Learning the language of business. You can't just think we know it. I don't see any questions. So I think we've got a pretty good opportunity here. So, I'll stick with what Olivia said right here. Fear turns to excitement. If you can really focus on discovery, right? Getting excited about finding the opportunities, finding new companies, finding new cultures, work-life balance, being able to spend more time with your family, know you're going to be home, make more money, right? All of these things. Move when you want to move. If you could turn that fear into excitement, then everything changes for you. And that excitement continues when you get out. And I will tell you that I will never forget. And being a sergeant major in the 24 years, 3 months and 3 days that I spent in the Army were some of the best times of my life. But I have pivoted since then. And I wouldn't change what I'm doing now for the world. I love my career. I love the different impact I have on people's lives. I love the ability for my team to choose their team, and how we can decide on our own where we want to go and what we want to do, and make money doing it, take care of other people, take care of these livelihoods. And I think that's out there for every single one of you, if you invest the time to do it right. So start early, as early as you can, hit it hard, build those relationships, continue to discover until you know what you want to do, can say what that job is, can describe what a day in the life of that is, and have a network of people in that industry that are looking out for you. Keep hitting it hard until you find your success. All right, everybody. I love that this has just seemed like I just wanted to give you a little free thoughts here on a Friday morning. Have a great weekend. I know that the transition is stressful. Don't forget to unplug at some point and go out and do the things that keep you physically and mentally healthy. One of the big changes for me has been biking. So I've been going out on my bicycle and riding, and just that time not being on the internet, not being on LinkedIn, not being at phone calls, not thinking about work has been a life changer for me. And I think a lot of you probably have seen that in my posts as well. So just go out there, find your success. Doesn't have to look like anybody else's, but put in the work to make it happen. You need to own this. It's on you, not anyone else. But I know you can do it, so reach out for help if you need it. Have a great day, everybody.